What's up, guys? Welcome to Boxing Decades. We are a little under 2 weeks away from the light heavyweight showdown between Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde. And this fight's taking place at Wembley Arena in London, and this is for the unified light heavyweight champion of the world. Now, I feel like there's already a belief that Beterbiev is the one who's going to win this fight. And I can't say that I disagree with that statement. However, I want to give credit to Anthony Yarde for some things that I've seen improved in his boxing ability since the Kovalev fight that I think will make this fight just a little bit more interesting. In his bout with Dex Spellman, you can see a little bit of a slower pace, a slower start from Anthony Yarde, which actually helps him in this fight. Because it seemed to start off slow, Yarde really wasn't throwing too many punches. But towards the middle rounds, you can see Anthony Yarde calculating and picking his shots. A lot of body shots were thrown, and you can see Yarde throwing combinations to get Spellman to raise his guard and keep attacking the body. Yarde gets the TKO at the end of the sixth after a barrage of right hands. We then see Yarde face off against Lyndon Arthur. And I personally think that this fight, I saw a giant improvement in his stamina. Although he lost the fight, you could still see an improvement. In the beginning of this fight, and honestly throughout the entire fight, Yarde was pretty stiff, and he was not throwing enough punches. I think the Kovalev fight showed him just how much he needed to learn a better pace as well as improve his conditioning. This was the first bout that we saw Yarde actually made it to a decision. Before the Kovalev fight, we obviously saw Yarde load up on his punches, which would be devastating for his opponents, but that isn't always going to work. The man can generate a lot of power. He's a big dude. He's got a lot of type 2 muscle fibers, the explosive kind that generates power. The problem with those same muscle fibers is that they use a lot of energy and a lot of oxygen. This causes them to tire very quickly, which is what Anthony Yarde's problem was. He needs more of the endurance muscles, the type 1 fibers. These are the slow twitch fibers. These are the muscle fibers that are going to get you from round 1 into the championship rounds. It was only a matter of time before Yarde didn't put somebody on the canvas and had to actually fight into those championship rounds. Before the Kovalev fight, Yarde rarely made it past the 5th round, with only 2 bouts going to the 7th. In this Kovalev fight, you can see that he took his time, surviving these explosive punches by Yarde and just waiting for the fatigue to set in. By round 8, Yarde almost KO'd Kovalev, but he failed. In return, he became gassed, which is exactly why this brute of a man got put down by a jab. Now, I don't think that Anthony Yarde has a glass chin by all means, but he did fatigue himself into the state of exhaustion where he could be put down by a jab, and that's not good at all. On the contrary, not throwing enough punches will also not win you the fight. In the first Lyndon Arthur fight, this is exactly what Yarde failed on. He was able to pace himself throughout the fight and honestly did not even seem gassed by the 12th round, but he didn't effectively attack Lyndon Arthur, and he failed on his mission of actually winning that fight. You could see that he looks all surprised that he lost, but you watch that fight over again, the guy didn't hit Lyndon Arthur enough. He didn't bring the fight to him. He lost that fight. So with a little bit more adjusting, Yarde was able to pace himself better against Lyndon Arthur in the second fight, as well as actually attack with some punches. Yarde wanted to keep a better pace, but he knew he could not fight Arthur the same way as before. This fight he came out way more aggressive, but still keeping a decent composure. Yarde ends it early in the 4th round and gains his revenge. So I do think Yarde has made a bit of improvement since that Kovalev fight, but is it enough to beat Beterbiev? These are both hard-hitting men, and I would say probably 2 of the hardest hitting in that light heavyweight division. So it could end off of one shot. That's all it takes is one shot, and this fight could be over, and it could have either man come out as the victor. And I don't think Beterbiev has an advantage in this arena. Both men can hit hard. They both have great knockout ratios, and they both have touched the canvas. Obviously, we already know Anthony Yarde was most famously put down by a jab by Sergey Kovalev. Beterbiev was knocked down twice so far in his career. Once by Jeff Page, which was a straight right hand, and then for the second time by Colin Johnson, which was a short left hook. Beterbiev actually ended up winning both of those fights anyway, but nonetheless, he can be dropped. That fact alone, I think that gives enough proof that this fight could end either way. Beterbiev is just a way more experienced boxer. He has 18 wins, 0 losses, all 18 wins coming by way of knockout, and then in his amateur career, he has 295 wins, 5 losses, and he's beat Sergey Kovalev twice in the amateurs, and he also put up a great fight and almost ended up winning against the current heavyweight champion of the world, Alexander Usyk. I mean, the guy has an amazing track record. Yarde has 23 wins, 22 of those coming by way of knockout, and 2 losses. Now, his amateur career, He has 11 wins and 1 loss. So he has 12 amateur fights before he turned pro. Now, I know amateur fights and pro fights they're not the same thing in boxing, but you're talking about a lot of experience that Beterbiev has over Anthony Yarde. With that much experience comes some sort of wisdom. Only wisdom that can be acquired with fighting over 300 different men. Now, for obvious reasons, there's really not much improvement that Beterbiev has to make coming into this fight. He has a perfect record and a perfect KO ratio. He moves well, he has a pretty solid chin, he hits like a brick, and he wears his opponents down. He is a patient and smart fighter. The only area that I haven't seen Beterbiev really shine is his head movement. He has amazing footwork. He's able to move in and out, side to side with ease. His footwork is very good, but when it comes to an opponent throwing a barrage of punches or really putting pressure on, Beterbiev does get tagged. I'm not saying that Beterbiev has horrible head movement or that, he doesn't move his head at all. All I'm saying is that I've seen this area in his fight game where it could be improved. When you watch him against an opponent that throws a barrage of punches, in particular, I'm thinking about the fight with Marcus Brown, you can see Beterbiev, he either tries to move out of the way using his excellent footwork, or he'll throw his hands up and he'll just let the punches hit his arms, hit his guard, or he'll just take the punch. Like, he'll literally just eat the punch. Marcus Brown threw a lot of punches during this fight, and he came out very aggressive. Probably one of the most aggressive opponents Beterbiev has faced. You can see that he really puts the pressure on Beterbiev, and I think that this is a tactic that could be potentially good for Yarde. You can see that he really puts the pressure on Beterbiev in this fight, and I think that might be a good tactic for Yarde to use, but for a different reason. If Yarde were to beat Beterbiev, he would have to effectively be aggressive, but also use his power to his advantage. I think Yarde is a harder puncher than Marcus Brown. So if he can exploit Beterbiev not using, amazing head movement, that could be where he potentially lands one of those devastating right hands. So if he does land those shots, I have to assume that he could potentially put down Beterbiev. Now, that's easier said than done. I think one of the reasons that you don't see opponents really pursue Beterbiev in this way is because Beterbiev has a lot of power himself. I mean, with 18 knockouts in 18 fights, clearly the man has power. And once you respect that power, your brain starts telling you, hey, maybe it's not a good idea that we move in on this guy and try and throw a bunch of punches. Maybe it's better that we kind of stay back a little bit and try and make this a little bit more of a safer fight because I don't want to get knocked out. At the end of the day, I really do think that that is Anthony Yarde's only chance of beating Beterbiev. I am reaching here to give Anthony Yarde a chance in this fight, but I'm doing so to play devil's advocate because there is a chance, there could be a chance, that Anthony Yarde exploits the lack of head movement in Beterbiev and uses his power and lands one of these shots and potentially do that. Now, it's possible that that could happen. I don't think it's likely. Beterbiev is too skilled for Anthony Yarde. And at the end of the day, Yarde is going to have to rely on solely luck to beat Beterbiev. All in all, I have Beterbiev winning this fight by KO in around the 7th round. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Who do you have winning this fight? If it is Anthony Yarde, I would love to know why. Please comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel as I'm making boxing videos each week. And please consider tapping the like button if you enjoyed this video as well. And as always, thank you for watching.